What's up, everybody? It's Power Rankings Podcast, aka the Power Rankings Show. I am your host, Elliot Harrison, and I am pleased to be joined by @Marcus_Mosher. How are you, sir?
Doing really well. I just got done watching Oklahoma fullback that reminds me a little bit of Jameis Olawale. So I'm fired up today. I could not be off to a better start today.
Oh, I thought you were saying he reminds you of you.
No, Jameis Olawale, guy that went to a little place that's right behind your head.
Is there a basketball player that reminds me of you since you were a high school basketball star?
No.
But you were a very solid free throw shooter.
I was a good free throw shooter. It's about the extent of my basketball skill. Yep.
So they couldn't hack a Marcus at the end of games. So
well, no, that's not true
for teams.
See, this is what happened when I was in 8th grade. They did a hack of Marcus. I remember I was 7 of 24 from the free throw line in a game. So my dad made me shoot like 1,000 free throws every day. So I ended up getting over my free throw woes.
When I was in 5th grade, my coach said I had 15 steals in the first half of a game.
Jeez.
But I traveled on over half of them.
Just not somebody who liked to dribble very much, huh?
I couldn't get the 2-step layup thing down.
Yeah.
It's
all right. They're a little bit more lenient now in basketball. You can get almost that third step in, and they're fine.
Yeah. I had some breakaway buckets. I think the ref called a few too many. After a while, I developed a reputation, so they started like if I had to 1.5 it. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Yeah, I know you know what I mean. All right, let me fix my head rest here, brother. Okay, we're doing a great job. So it is the Power Rankings podcast, which we've been doing some different things since the Super Bowl. I'm sure you guys have noticed. One of the things that we've been doing is Marcus has been doing some different rankings, which has actually been kind of fun because we've done it. I shouldn't say actually, like it's not normally fun, but it's been draft relevant. And so it's different ways of looking at the draft. And he did something pretty interesting today. We talked about him doing it. Then he complained that he had to work for 7 hours on it. So even though he's secretly excited to reveal his group of players here, but here's what we're doing today. So we've been taking things back to 2000. Now, it's not that we ignore NFL history. If you guys know me, I'll go as deep as y'all want to go, but we know that, there is somewhat of a recency bias in the NFL, and a lot of people are more interested in some of the recent stuff. And also, Marcus really started following the draft super, super close. In the early 2000s, right?
Yeah, like 2002 was really the first draft I really got into.
Yeah, so we've been sticking near the 2000 barrier on most of the stuff we've done. Occasionally, though, we've been going farther back, especially when we did the top playoff games of all time. But today, we're doing each team's best draft pick since 2000. Marcus, this is his list. I have no idea who's on it. I'm going to be reacting to it. Marcus, your criteria, how much of this had to do with bang for the buck?
A lot of it, right? I try to have a lot of players that were drafted on day 3, and the later that you were drafted, the more value I gave to that pick. So you're not going to see any first round selections on this list, because when you pick in the first round, you better be getting a good player. A lot of 3rd, 4th, 5th round picks in this one. And because I know you hate talking about quarterbacks so much, I tried to not talk about quarterbacks a ton. So there's only a few on here, but a lot of offensive line and defensive line guys that we're going to be talking about in just a second.
Yeah, so one of the differences between Marcus and I is Marcus really likes this aspect of football. I don't. The aspect of the quarterback having so much weighted importance, I think it ruins pro football on some levels. He thinks it makes it better. And so we talk about that a lot because obviously Marcus did this list. He believes in positional value greatly. And I don't blame him, because the way the salary cap is now, you have to really weigh it more than ever before. And what I mean by that is you get a quarterback early that could start for you early. You're not having to pay them the ridiculous amount of money. If you get a running back early, yeah, a great running back might make $9 million a year, Marcus, something like that.
Yep.
A great quarterback is going to be making $40 million a year. So being able to get them on their rookie deals is really, really important. And their rookie deals are not weighted on their position. They're weighted upon where they're drafted. So that's the deal there. Before we get started on this, any football topics on your mind? We always get a little bit of a little stuff out of the way. I just want to get to the list.
Yeah, I just want to get to the list. We don't really have any big football news, so we should get right into this.
All right, so we starting with how we doing this?
We're just doing that, just alphabetical. Okay. So again,
I had no part in this, so I'm a little bit. I'm flying on instruments here. So okay, I see the Arizona Cardinals staring me in the face at the top of our rundown that Courtney Lovely Brinks TV put together for us. Courtney, this looks awesome. Like our rundown looks so cool. If you don't ever. Lovely probably isn't the right word, but what would you say about our rundown? It's
clean. It's clean.
It's clean. Yeah, I was going to say sexy, but I don't know if like Nintendo helmet graphics can be sexy. But clean is better than lovely. But anyway, it looks rad. You should check it out. We're also on YouTube. Okay, so let's start. Arizona Cardinals.
Again, the show is not going to be dominated by quarterbacks, but let's start at the top of the Cardinals. Kyler Murray at number. No, it's not Kyler. It's Calais Campbell. Boy. Calais Campbell.
Okay.
Second round pick 50 overall. He had a really good career with the Cardinals before going to Jacksonville and then going to the Ravens. 13 years that he started in the NFL. I've had a couple other guys I was going to mention here, including Anquan Boldin, who was incredible at the start of his career. Darnell Dockett should be at least mentioned. Adrian Wilson. Those are all guys that were drafted on day 2. But I think Campbell, because you're getting over a decade of high quality production.
Oh, that's tough. Now, did you not pick Larry Fitzgerald simply because he was a first-round pick?
And he was the number 3 pick, right? When you're drafting a receiver that high, you're expecting them to be a multi-time Pro Bowl guy.
Not only that, but a lot of people would argue you should be taking a quarterback at that spot. Oh, this is really hard. I mean, between those 3, and I think Anquan Boldin would give these guys a run for his money. People forget how good Anquan Boldin was, especially for the Cardinals. He was their tough over the middle guy. I still remember that hit against the Jets, and I want to say it was either 08 or 09. Do you remember that? I think he broke his jaw or something and going up for the football. Just Anquan Boldin, super tough. Okay, but I like this pick. Let's get it.
Wouldn't fight you on either of those. And actually, I think Darnell Dockett was at the peak. When he was at the peak, the Super Bowl in 2008, I mean, he was incredible. All right, Atlanta. This was a little trickier. I went with Grady Jarrett because this is a multi-time Pro Bowl defensive tackle who the Falcons got in the 5th round of the 2015 draft. I considered Matt Schaub, who was a 3rd-round pick, although most of his best snaps came with another team, the Texans, not the Falcons. I considered Devontae Freeman, but I think Grady Jarrett, who is still playing really well for Atlanta, is the pick here.
I'm trying to remember, was Matt Schaub a free agent signing by Houston, or did they trade him?
I believe he was a trade.
I thought he was too, because it's interesting what capital you get from that. But I actually like this pick a lot. It's a 5th-round pick. It's a guy that's played for them for a really long time. Remember in the Super Bowl, man, he was a force. He was dominating the Patriots' interior line early in that game. High motor early in his career. What year did Grady Jarrett come out?
2015.
15, right? So this is going to be year 8 for him. We'll see how he does, but I like it. Okay, Baltimore Ravens.
This one was really tough. A lot of really good names here, including Demaryius Thomas, who they got in the 6th round. I know that you're a big Thomas fan. Brandon Williams, the defensive tackle they got in the 3rd round, really good pick. Matt Judon was a 5th-round pick. I was Marshall Yanda. He was a 3rd-round pick 86 overall, 2 All-Pro selections, 8 Pro Bowl selections, and one of the best guards of the last decade.
Well, this is a guy we talked about on the phone when I was talking to you last night, and I brought him up, and we couldn't remember where in the draft he went. 3rd round, that's a heck of a value. Marshall Yanda probably going to go to the Hall of Fame. He's certainly going to be considered. I can guarantee you that, because for a couple of years, he was considered the best offensive lineman in pro football, period. He was kind of the Trent Williams of 10 years ago or whatever it was that he was considered that. But I like that. What draft did Yanda come out in?
That would be the 2007 draft.
7. Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. Buffalo Bills.
So no big complaints so far. You're good, right?
No, we're good. Okay. We're doing good. We're cruising.
Buffalo Bills. This one was easy for me. It's Kyle Williams, who was a 5th-round pick by the team in 2006.
Yeah.
He started 178 games for the Bills, 6 Pro Bowls.
Yeah.
Just an awesome player.
I hate to quote Renee Zellweger, but you had me at hello. I mean, that's fantastic. I love the way Sean McDermott at the end of Kyle Williams' career let him catch a swing pass.
Yep.
And then Kyle Williams thought he was going to come out of the game, and Sean McDermott had to wave him back in so they could pull him out and he could get an ovation. And they made the playoffs his last year on that Tyler Boyd play against Baltimore, where they're all watching in the locker room and he's with his kids. And I think he cried. I mean, it was just, because Buffalo hadn't been to the playoffs in so long. I love it. You're doing great. Carolina Panthers.
They have several that I considered, including Trey Turner, who was a 3rd-round pick. Josh Norman was a 5th-round pick. They got an all-pro corner in the 5th round. Greg Hardy was a 5th-round pick, but I'm going with Steve Smith. 3rd-round pick, pick 74 overall, 2 all-pro selections, 5 Pro Bowls, 14 years in the NFL. Steve Smith, one of the better receivers ever under 6 foot.
Now, I would have to say here that I would give Muhsin Muhammad a lot of thought here, but Muhsin Muhammad came before 2000. I think Muhsin Muhammad was the 96 draft, if I'm not mistaken, but another really great player, was really valuable for Carolina. Obviously, Julius Peppers, he was a high pick. I don't have much argument with this, although I think Carolina has hit on a lot of guys over the years, not in the 1st round. Thomas Davis.
He was. I think he was an early 2nd-round pick. Yep. Yeah,
I was going to say I thought he was a day 2 pick. He had injury problems early in his career, but what a great career he had. He'd probably be the stiffest competition based on where he was picked, but I'm not going to take him over Steve Smith. I have no argument here. Chicago Bears. Speaking of Moose and
Bears had a lot of really good ones, including Matt Forte, Charles Tillman. You know how much I love Devin Hester when you get Devin Hester in the 2nd round. But for me, it's clear. It's Lance Briggs, a 3rd-round pick. I think there was times and seasons where he was every bit as good as Brian Urlacher. He didn't get quite the same amount of praise, but 7 Pro Bowls, an all-pro selection, 12 years of starting experience. I love Lance Briggs. That's a heck of a value in the 3rd round.
You bet. One thing about Lance Briggs, though, a little bit of a dated player. I don't know the value Lance Briggs would have today. He was a good size, off-the-ball linebacker that just doesn't have the positional impact today. But in the era that he played, he was still really, really important. And he was a really good player. So that's no disrespect to him. It's just how football has changed a little bit, which we've talked about in other podcasts. Okay. I mean, I'm shocked, but I don't have any problems so far. I know I'm going to.
This next one is really hard, and I can be talked either way. So I went with Geno Atkins in the 4th round, pick 120, because
a great one.
Geno, I mean, when he was healthy, he was a dominant player. Not as good as Aaron Donald, but you're talking about one of the top 2 or 3 defensive tackles in the league. But you could make a really good argument for Andrew Whitworth as well. He was a 2nd-round pick, 55 overall. And if you're getting a left tackle that's that good for more than a decade, I'd have no problems with that at all.
Yeah, it's the first guy I thought of was Andrew Whitworth. I'll tell you another guy I thought of, another 2nd-round pick, one of your favorite players. I'm surprised you didn't mention him since we're going since 2000. If you kick an extra point, I'll give you a hint.
Chad Johnson.
Yeah, 2nd-round pick. It's funny. Chad Johnson's kind of considered like a funny guy, but I think people forget how good he was.
Sure.
The thing with Whitworth here is I think going to your positional value, would you rather have a 3-technique defensive tackle or left tackle? On the other hand, there's a big difference in draft capital 4th-round pick, 2nd-round pick.
And that's the difference. And I actually think there's more good tackles in the NFL than there are disruptive 3 techniques that can get double-digit sacks every year, like Geno Atkins did. So, I have no problem with either of those. Those guys are awesome players.
Only other caveat I have here, Andy Dalton's got to get some love here. I mean, he was a 2nd-round pick. Granted, a really high 2nd-round pick. I think he either went 1st or 2nd in the 2nd round in 2011, but they made 5 straight playoff appearances with Andy Dalton from 2011 to 2015. The guy deserves a little more respect. I know the last couple of years haven't been beautiful, but he's had a nice career.
Yep, I agree. All right, let's move on to Cleveland. Cleveland was a little bit more difficult. They didn't have a ton of hits outside of the first 2 rounds. Mitchell Schwartz was a really good tackle for Kansas City, not so much for Cleveland. DeQuell Jackson was a good linebacker. But I went with Joe Bitonio, who they got at pick 35. I know that's one of the higher picks that we're going to talk about today, but you're getting a guy that's been a 4 straight Pro Bowls that he's been selected to, an all-pro guard a couple of years ago. Just a really, really solid player.
Okay, now this one I'd take you to task a little bit. By the way, you missed a golden opportunity to say we're moving on from Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Sorry, poor football humor.
That's all right.
Why not Myles Garrett here? Given how badly they fared in top picks before Myles Garrett. I mean, they had a string of really bad picks, and
probably because that's the expectation.
So impactful.
But when you take a defensive end at number 1, you're expecting to get somebody super impactful. It doesn't really, I don't know if drafting Myles Garrett at number 1 feels like a steal, right? It's what you're supposed to get, but getting a all-pro quality guard in the second round, that's a little harder to do.
Yeah, I think I only disagree with you on this one, in that Joe Bitonio went pretty high.
He did.
This is not a,
the other
late second round pick.
No.
This was an early second round pick. This was a guy that could have gone at the end of the first round.
And the problem is there's just not many other hits outside of the first or second round. I mean, Anthony Henry, if you want to go way back to 2001, who I always liked a little bit. Nick Chubb was a second round pick, a really good player though, but that's about it.
What year did they get Bitonio? 4th round? I mean, 14?
2014. Yep.
Yeah. Trying to think of that draft. That actually was a pretty good draft overall. Okay, let's move on for Cleveland.
We're going to the Dallas Cowboys, which I know you're going to have a little bit of a fight about. It's Dak Prescott. You find a 3-time Pro Bowl quarterback in the 4th round, pick 135, so not even an early 4th round pick. I picked Dak, but if you say Jason Witten, that's certainly a good one for me. Even if you want to go like DeMarco Murray in the 3rd round, or Jay Ratliff in the 7th round, or Brady James in the 4th round, I'm good with all those.
Well, I mean, Jay Ratliff in the 7th round was incredible value. But here, I think that the thought process here is, well, Dak Prescott, you get a franchise quarterback in the 4th round. What is a franchise quarterback? Is a franchise quarterback a guy that we franchise, a guy that gets paid a lot of money, or is a franchise quarterback a guy that quarterbacks your team a long time? If that's the case, Dak Prescott meets all the criteria. If a franchise quarterback is a guy that takes you to the next step over his predecessor, or who can take you at least to a conference championship game appearance, then he doesn't meet that criteria. Either way, I don't have a horrible problem with Dak Prescott being your choice here, except that you got a Hall of Fame tight end in the 3rd round. If Jason Witten went in the 1st round, I would get it. But Jason Witten's going to the Hall. Forget the end of his career. And you got him just, 30 spots ahead of Dak?
It's quite a bit more than 40, that, but yeah.
40-something spots ahead of Dak?
He was, I believe, I'll look it up right now.
He was a high 3rd round pick, and Dak was a low 4th round pick. So it's probably like 48 picks.
So you're looking at pick 69 versus 135. I mean, that's basically 2 full rounds of spots. Okay. But Jason Witten could easily be on this list. I have, again, no problem with that.
And no thought for DeMarcus Ware. I know DeMarcus Ware was a 1st round pick, but it's not like he went in the top 10. He was actually picked number 11. I think if DeMarcus Ware went 1st overall in the draft, you'd say, hey, that's one of the better 1st overall picks ever, right?
Sure.
So believe it or not, an 11th overall pick can be a pretty great value in and of itself. But I don't have a huge issue with you not taking him.
All right. Let's move on to Denver.
Okay.
This one was tricky because they had some really good players that fell to day 3, including Elvis Dumerville. Eric Decker was a 3rd round pick. Malik Jackson was a 5th round pick. But I went with Brandon Marshall, 4th round pick 119 in the 2006 draft. Brandon Marshall was so good for so many different teams, but I think this one was pretty easy.
Yeah, I don't mind that pick. The only guy that I was thinking here, again, is another 1st round pick. But farther down in the first round, Demaryius Thomas, I think was a really good pick by this team.
But do you think he was better than Brandon Marshall?
Well, Brandon Marshall, no. As a player, no. But Brandon Marshall with the Broncos was a headache for them. He wasn't the same guy he was in Chicago.
Correct.
Demaryius Thomas, a great player, great teammate, really key to their Super Bowl teams. And again, he wasn't a high first round pick. He went 22nd overall. So I don't have a problem with Brandon Marshall. That would have been Demaryius Thomas would have been probably where I would have gone.
Yeah. Both really, really good receivers. All right. Moving on to Detroit. This one was hard because there's nobody that really stood out. I think Darius Slay at pick 36 is a really good value.
Oh, yeah.
I think Sean Rogers, like if you remember the early part of Sean Rogers' career was really good. They got him at pick 61. I even think somebody like Deandre Levy at pick 76 deserves to be mentioned. But I went with Quandre Diggs, safety that they got in their 6th round, pick 200 overall. I know he's with Seattle now, but you're talking about somebody who has been a multi-time Pro Bowl defensive back, and you find that on late in day 3. It's a pretty good pick.
I probably would have gone Slay. This is a really tough one. Gosh, that's a great value to get that kind of corner in the 2nd round. Yeah. I just love that you brought up Deandre Levy. I can't think of a good player that's been so quickly forgotten. Granted, his career did not last a really long time, his peak, but for 2 or 3 years, man, he was a really, really good, excellent beard too, I might add.
Can I give you one more? He wasn't in the top 3 of my consideration, but Dominic Raiola, the center that the Lions had, they took him.
Long-time player.
Yeah, they took him at pick 50. He started 203 games for the Lions. I mean, that's
at center. Yeah.
What wasn't a Pro Bowl level center, but a very good player.
You bet. And those are the kinds of picks that, when you are heading into the draft and, hey, we don't have to worry about this. Every year, we don't have to worry about this. We don't have to worry about this. It's great. I'm with you. All right, Green Bay Packers.
Ooh, this one was tough because they had a lot of really good players, including Devontae Adams, Jordy Nelson, TJ Lang was a 4th round pick. There are a lot of good ones here, but I went with David Bakhtiari because they got him in the 4th round. Yeah, 4th round left tackle that was a multi-time All-Pro selection. I think when he's healthy, a top 3 or 4 left tackle in the league. He was 2013 draft. I think that's a pretty good value there.
Yeah, so I'm reacting to what you're doing, but they got Jordy Nelson in the 2nd round of 2008, and I that was kind of where my mind went. I think I would probably go Aaron Rodgers here, believe it or not, even though I said what I said about the quarterback.
I'm trying to avoid 1st round picks because
I know. But I don't have a problem with David Bakhtiari. He's been a great player and 4th round pick. I mean, you're getting a left tackle of that ilk. Fine by me. Houston Texans.
All right. Brown? So before this pops up, who would you have picked here? Because this one was a little tricky.
Well, this probably isn't fair, but I just know how much Andre Johnson did for that franchise. I mean, when he got there, man, their top receiver was Corey Bradford. They had a tight end named Billy Miller. And whenever you played Houston, I know it's easy to think of like them being a J.J. Watt team, but whenever you played Houston back in those days, you had to account for Andre Johnson. And he was like the only guy that you had to account for. But I realize I'm kind of cherry picking a star, and that's not what you were looking for here. You were looking for a major bargain, weren't you?
I was. When I initially wrote down my list, I wrote Eric Winston, who was the right tackle for the Texans for years. Really good player. But I think there was a better value. Owen Daniels went in the 4th round. He was a really good tight end. I don't know if he was I know he wasn't at the level of Rob Gronkowski or Travis Kelsey or anything like that, but this is a borderline Pro Bowl tight end every single year. He was important for their run game because he could do a lot of the blocking things in that zone blocking offense with Arian Foster. And you get a starting level tight end in the 4th round. It's hard to beat that.
I've got another low 1st round pick for you.
Okay.
I know you're looking for bargains, and I'm the one that keeps going back to the 1st round, but it's late. It's a late 1st round pick. Whitney Merciless had a really nice career for the Houston Texans. He was 26th overall. And Yeah.
I mean, if we're doing that, we should also mention DeAndre Hopkins, who was picked 27 for them.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I instantly went to Andre Johnson just because I started covering the sport in that era and professionally. And I'm telling you, nobody cared about Houston. Nobody except Andre Johnson, and anyway, so, okay, I'll stop talking about it. I think Andre Johnson's so underrated, man.
He is.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
This Colts. Next one, the Indianapolis Colts. When I did some of this research, you find teams that are just so good at picking after the first round. And the Colts are one of them, right? I mean, the names that I could list here between Bob Sanders and T.Y. Hilton and Darius Leonard and Pierre Garçon. I mean, there is a list of these guys that all drafted outside the top 35.
Can I guess?
Yeah,
Can I guess?
Yeah.
I'm going to guess Robert Mathis in the fifth round.
And that's the right answer, right? Pick 138. Yes. One of the best speed rushers we've ever seen. 5 Pro Bowls, 1 All-Pro. You were terrified to play against Robert Mathis. So, yeah, I think he has to be on here.
I didn't see his name down there. I promise it's covered. I can only see the very tops of the letters. So there we go.
The Colts they're just loaded. Their draft history is fantastic. Now, a team that does not have a good draft history, the Jacksonville Jaguars. This one was tricky. I went with David Garrard because you got Garrard started 5 years for them. He had a winning record during his time with Jacksonville, took him to the playoffs. They beat the Steelers in the playoffs. And if you find a quarterback in the 4th round, that's semi-decent. It's hard to ignore.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. When we talked on the phone, that was a name that I mentioned as a value. Marcus and I talked about this idea, and we just brought up like a random team. We for some reason we have a fascination with Jacksonville.
Yep.
And David Garrard came up, and I'm with you there all the way. All right, Kansas City Chiefs.
This is one where I think we might have some argument because there's 3 clear names here. I'm curious to see what you have done. We've got Jared Allen in the 4th round, pick 126.
Great one.
Travis Kelsey in the 3rd round, pick 63, or Tyree Kill in the 5th round, pick 165.
Yeah. So this one, I don't know. Gosh, there's more players than just that.
But those are the 3 that are just so much.
Absolutely. I think it's got to be Travis Kelsey. When you talk about service to the franchise, I think Travis Kelsey came out in the 2013 draft. Is that right?
Yep.
3rd round. And he didn't start right away. I think they had Anthony Fasano then as their starter. I can't quite remember, but I think it was Fasano had come over from Miami. But by his 3rd year, he started. By his 4th year, he's one of the better tight ends in the league. By his 5th year, he was a Pro Bowl, All-Pro level player, and he's been that ever since. I think he's going to the Hall of Fame, and he's got service to the team. Unfortunately, Jared Allen, people tend to remember him more for Minnesota, Marcus.
Yep. And that's why I didn't pick him here.
Yeah. And Tyree Kill has had some off-the-field stuff that's been a distraction, as great as he's been, and he's in Miami now. So I think it's Kelsey.
I went with Tyree Kill because he made the Pro Bowl every single year that he was with the Chiefs. Yeah. All 6 years that he's been with the team, he's made the Pro Bowl. I think he's been one of the most unstoppable players in the NFL because of his speed. You look at his production, over 7,000 receiving yards since joining Kansas City. I get the Travis Kelsey thing, but when you factor in that Hill was drafted 2 rounds later and has been just as productive, I like Tyreek a little bit better.
That's okay. I don't mind you using the Pro Bowl thing, except at quarterback. That's the only spot I don't allow it, because how many of them even ever play? It's like the 8th guy chosen. Yeah. Okay, next team.
It's the Las Vegas Raiders, and this one was really tough. I actually considered Shane Leckler, a punter who was drafted in the 5th round. I considered Latavius Murray, who was a 6th round pick, who's had a really nice career. But
just not a long time with the Raiders, though. That's the only downside. Okay,
I went with Derek Carr. I think he really helped turn this franchise around because up until 2014, when they drafted him, this was a team that struggled to just get wins, and Carr turned them into a pretty competent franchise, right? They made the playoffs in 2016, 2020. They had their first 8-8 season in forever. 2021, they made the playoffs, and they came within 1 play of beating the Bengals. So I'm taking Derek Carr here.
And you wanted to take Lamont Jordan, but then you had to remind yourself he started with the Jets. 2 guys here.
I was actually taking Tavon Branch, but
Yeah. Okay. So, former safety. Two guys here. One I just want to ask you about if he entered your mind, and one that I would argue with you on Derek Carr, and I'm going top heavy again. But that's my job here. Is any thoughts on Max Crosby, given where he was taken?
Yeah, definitely, because he's already a borderline all-pro player, but we're only 3 years into his career, and it's just hard to justify that over a quarterback. But yeah. I think if we're doing the show in 2 years from now, I think Crosby will have a really good case.
Okay. This is different. Now, I know I've been bringing up top heavy picks here, some first round picks, but Khalil Mack, when you get as much draft capital as they got for him, it's not really his fault that they didn't do anything with those picks. I mean, if you could turn a guy into 3 first round picks, technically, isn't he the best pick you ever had in some ways, at least?
I mean, you got 2 all-pro seasons out of him, the defensive player of the year in 2016. I mean, it's hard to argue against it.
Yeah, I said best pick you ever had. I meant since 2000 because the Raiders have some
draft history is not great there.
Since 2000. It's really great if you go the 80s and back. But all right, cool. Let's go to the LA Chargers.
Oh, this one was hard, really hard, because Drew Brees entered the conversation, but obviously the best years of his career didn't come with the Chargers. I thought about like Vincent Jackson. I thought about Eric Weddle. Thought about Darren Sproles, although most of Sproles' best years came after he left the Chargers. Thought about Michael Turner, who was a 5th round pick, but like Sproles, a lot of his best seasons came not with the Chargers. But ultimately, I landed on Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen, a 3rd round pick in the 2013 draft, 5 Pro Bowl seasons. He's been just so consistent every single year. This one was tough, though.
I don't have a problem with this. I want you to know who I thought of here in it, and I couldn't remember what year he came out. He came out 2 years before our list, 1998. But Jamal Williams, their nose tackle, played for them forever. He was a 2-time first-team All-Pro, and he was taken in the 2nd round of the supplemental draft. And listen, if you could get a player like that in the supplemental draft, Marcus, that's a huge boon for your franchise. Yeah. But it went in 1998. We're doing since 2000. I love that you mentioned Vincent Jackson here. I think that's smart. I think
2 more guys right. 2 more guys that aren't as good as Keenan Allen or Vincent Jackson, but that should be mentioned. Sean Phillips was picked 98 in the 4th round. Sean Phillips was a really good player that didn't get a lot of recognition. And then Nick Hardwick, one of the better centers in the early 2000s. He was the 66th pick overall. Really good center.
And I think played with them his entire career. Yep. Retired a Charger. So, I'm down. Okay, LA Rams.
The Rams, surprisingly, don't have a ton of picks that we can talk about here because they trade them all. But that's okay. We found a couple guys. I think it's Cooper Kupp. He was a 3rd round pick 69. And you go to have the year that he had last year. He's already been an all-pro selection. He's been a Pro Bowl guy for a couple of years now. I know it's pretty recent, but I have a hard time believing that anybody is a better value than him.
There's not, but I just want to tell you who I mean, this one, I think I don't know where else you could have gone here. Unless you want to, again, go top heavy and go Aaron Donald, but that's not what we're doing here. No. I just need to tell you, I couldn't remember if the Rams drafted LaRon Robinson or not. So
former Cowboy great.
Yeah, do you know who drafted LaRon Robinson? He got playing time with the Rams, but I had no idea. It
wasn't Jacksonville, was it?
It was Atlanta. I had no idea. So that was just my little fun thing for Marcus, because LaRon Robinson, if you don't know who he is, was this guy that barely played. He had okay years with the Jeff Fisher Rams. By okay, I mean like a few 100 yards.
Yeah.
And then he goes to the Cowboys and he catches
11 touchdowns.
11 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Yes, out of nowhere for 1 year.
Yep.
For 1 year. Yeah, it's crazy. Okay. Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, we're going to be going on a little bit of a wide receiver run here. It's Jarvis Landry. They picked him in the 2nd round, pick 63. So at the very end of the 2nd round.
Deep in the second. Yeah.
he made the Pro Bowl 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19. 2 of those years with Cleveland, though. But his start of his career was incredible. And he fell because he did not run particularly well at his pro day. But he's so tough. He blocks his butt off. He'll catch every single pass in the middle of the field. I've always just really respected Jarvis Landry.
Yeah, I don't blame you here. Every Dolphins player that I think of for this they're all late 90s draft picks, all part of the Jimmy Johnson regime. They had some really good picks that kind of set Miami up for a few years, but we're doing since 2000, and they don't have the best draft history, man.
No, unfortunately.
They've had some bad luck too.
Yep, but
certainly. Jake Long got banged up early in his career, but Jake Long did he go first overall?
Yep.
Yeah. 2008, I think. Yeah. Okay.
I have the magazine right here. It's 2008 draft. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Minnesota Vikings.
Minnesota Vikings have a lot of really interesting names, including Everson Griffin, who was a 4th.
I was going to say Everson Griffin. Yeah.
Yeah. John Sullivan was a 6th-round pick. Eric Kendricks was a 2nd-round pick who's been excellent for them. Daniil Hunter, a 3rd-round pick. But I'm going Stephon Diggs because he caught the touchdown in one of their biggest playoff wins ever. He was incredible the first 5 years of his career with Minnesota. Plus, he was so good that they were able to trade him away for a 1st-round pick that became Justin Jefferson. So why not pick Stephon Diggs here as he was a late 5th-round selection?
I think Everson Griffin would have been a good choice here because of the breadth of his career for that team. I really love that you mentioned Kendricks. He's had a really nice career. I just want to this isn't an argument. I just want to throw out, in case you're out there going, what about Adam Thielen? Wasn't he like a really low round pick? No, he wasn't drafted.
Yep.
And we're not doing undrafted free agents here. We're doing only players that were drafted. So heck of a value for the Vikings there, but he doesn't qualify. So there we go. That's it. That's all I got. I just want to, I'm just wondering if the people out there are going like, well, what about, would you have remembered that Adam Thielen was undrafted?
Yeah. I'm just prepared.
That's
I'm preparing for the next one, the New England Patriots.
Okay.
I went with J.R. Redmond in the 3rd round. Just an excellent
You did
running.
not. You did not.
No, it's Tom Brady.
Oh my gosh.
We don't have to spend much time. However, I was thinking about if I didn't go with Tom Brady, who would have been the better selection. So I'll give you a couple ones, and I want your thoughts.
Okay.
Rob Gronkowski, I think the best tight end of all time, went pick 42. That's a really good one.
Say 2nd, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hard to beat. Asante Samuel was a 4th-round pick.
Yeah, that's a great pick, man.
Julian Edelman.
That's senior.
Yeah. So Asante Samuel senior.
Yeah.
Julian Edelman was a 7th-round pick by this team. I mean, that's a pretty incredible selection, right?
You bet.
Shaq Mason, a 4th-round pick. Marcus Cannon, a 5th-round pick.
Yeah.
Stephen Gostkowski was a 4th-round pick. James White was a 4th-round pick. I mean, they have a lot of really good ones.
They do. And if you're thinking, well, some other longtime Patriots, Dante Hightower went too high for this. He was a 1st-round pick. I can't remember where he went, but he was in the 1st round.
18 or something like that. Yep.
Yeah. But you naming J.R. Redmond made me want to think of every pass-catching running back the Patriots had.
Shane Vereen,
Deion Lewis, I'm going to go old school, not old school, but they had a guy named Patrick
Pass, who was like a fullback for them.
Yes. But I could go all day. They had a guy named Patrick Hobbs. Oh my gosh. They had Heath Evans at fullback, who I worked with for a while. I'm trying to think. James White. We didn't even say James White.
And he's probably the best of all of them.
We didn't say Danny Woodhead.
Woodhead was really fun.
Who's the kid? I think he's from Texas. Had a good championship game a couple years ago. I think he's on Houston now.
Rex Burkhead.
Rex Burkhead. Thank you. Yep. Thank you. Yeah. All right. Enough of Patriots. I didn't even get to Lawrence Maloney yet.
Didn't even mention yet. Kevin Falk.
I didn't mention Kevin Falk. He's kind of the OG.
Yeah.
No, J.R. Redmond's the OG because he caught the ball in the Super Bowl drive, the first play. Against the Rams. All right. I think that's enough of Patrick Pass. I know there's somebody in there we missed, though. I know there is. And I can't think it is.
Lamont Jordan wasn't really a pass-catching back. But
you know who their starting running back is? Wait, all right. Before we go, little Marcus trivia. Starting at tailback for the Patriots against the Rams in that first Super Bowl team, who was it?
So that would have been what, the 2001 season?
Mm-hmm. Kind of a big tailback. Started his career with Buffalo, and he had a split time with Thurman Thomas the first year.
Yeah, it was Antoine Smith.
There you go, Antoine Smith. Nice work. Okay, we can move on now.
Corey
Dillon. Sorry, go ahead.
Saints. A lot of really good ones, including Marcus Colston, Alvin Kamara. You could easily make a case for. Mark Bulger was a 6th-round pick for this team. Now, he didn't play for the Saints. Boston Scary played for the Rams, but I'm going Jari Evans, a dominant right guard for them for a decade, 4-time All-Pro selection. He was named on the All-Decade team for the 2010s. 4th-round pick.
You got the 4th round? Yeah. Okay.
108.
Yeah. Wasn't Colston a 7th-round pick?
252 overall. It's hard to beat that.
Yeah, man.
Evans was just a better player.
Oh, man. Marcus Colston was so important to those early Drew Brees teams. He was so reliable for that Super Bowl team in 2009. On this one, I'm going to go against you. Okay. I think if you get – because there's some guys, man, that have great numbers, and there's some guys that have good numbers, but they're so reliable. I've told you many times as a Cowboys fan that I thought Terry Glenn was so underrated. He was so reliable for the Cowboys, more reliable than their other receivers. I think Colston's one of the best draft values since 2000 across the board. So that would be my pick. But yeah, I get it.
Evans was so good for the entire
You have a guard fetish.
Yeah, I know. I do. That's I'll tell you. Giants.
So it's Will Hernandez.
No,
sorry.
David Deal did make the conversation though. He was on the list of people that I wanted to consider. Chris Snee, also a very good guard. This one was tricky because I always really liked Ahmad Bradshaw. He was one of my favorite running backs.
Oh boy, okay.
Because he was so good as a receiver. He was so shifty. I thought he was the more dangerous running back between him and Brandon Jacobs when they were the Lightning and Thunder. But that's not who I went with. I went with Justin Tuck, who was really the first of these defensive ends that could kick inside on 3rd down and rush the passer. It was a big reason why they won that Super Bowl in 2007 because he could get pressure on Brady. 3rd round, pick 74. I think it's hard to beat that one.
They could move him around the defensive line. He could. He was just one of those guys that gave you tremendous value when you're looking at your roster.
Yep.
And when you're rotating linemen in and out. Hey man, I got no issues with this one whatsoever. The Giants had a really good draft the year they made the Super Bowl, 2007. They got a bunch of guys. You mentioned Ahmad Bradshaw, but they got David Boss. Remember he started tight end. Didn't they get Tynes that year?
Kevin
also,
Boss. Kevin Boss.
Kevin
right?
Boss. Sorry, yep. Kevin Boss. And boy, I haven't done that in a long time.
That's all right.
Then they get Lawrence Tynes, their kicker that year too. I think they got like 6 guys that instantly came in and contributed for them. I have no problem with Justin Tuck. This is a good one.
The next one, the Jets. Now this one is really, really tricky. There's 2 linebackers that I consider, Demario Davis and David Harris. Demario Davis was mostly his best years came with the Saints. David Harris was a good but not great linebacker. Jericho Cotchery is somebody that I considered, but I decided to go with Carrie Rhodes. Carrie Rhodes was a good player. I don't know if he was a great player, but he started a bunch of games for this team. He was a 4th round pick, and I think he was a top 7 or 8 safety for most of his time with the Jets.
Can I give you mine?
Sure.
I'm going deep. I'm going all the way back to 2000. You did say back to 2000. So 3rd round pick out of Florida State. You know where I'm going? 2000?
Yeah, Lavernius Coles.
Wide receiver, Lavernius Coles. Boy, his rookie year, he contributed. Then he went 868 yards, then 1264. His 3rd year, he signs with Washington. He comes back to the Jets, has 845-yard year, and then another 1,098 year. Really consistent player for the Jets. And you think most people know that Lavernius Coles caught almost 700 balls in his career for 8,600 yards? Yeah, that's pretty good value in the middle of the 3rd round.
Jets.
I know you don't agree.
No, it's just that's fine. I think Coles was a good player. I think there was times where Carrie Rhodes was just a little bit better, but that's
okay. No worries.
Not gonna fight. Next one, Eagles. man, they are loaded between Deshaun Jackson and LaShawn McCoy and Brian Westbrook and Trent Cole. But to me, this one was easy. It's Jason Kelsey, 6th-round pick, number 191 overall.
Yeah.
I think he's been the best center in the last decade. So it's not that – I don't think we need to discuss this one too much.
Is that your way of telling me don't argue?
You can argue. Do you disagree?
No, I don't, actually. I think this is a great pick. I have no problem with it. I like the fact that you didn't go quarterback, probably because you couldn't. It's funny. I keep looking up some guys that I, remember being great draft values. You remember Al Harris?
Sure.
He was a nickelback for Philadelphia. Then he had that famous pick 6 for Green Bay, but he went in the 1997 draft. And I just learned something new. Al Harris was drafted by Tampa Bay, and I did not know that. Didn't make it with them. So there you go. All right, cool. Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh. This one's pretty easy. It's Antonio Brown, 6th-round pick, 195 overall, 4-time All-Pro selection. But I do want to mention, no, he went to Central Michigan.
Central Michigan, okay.
Him and JJ Watt played on the same team together, which is incredible. But I do want to mention 7th-round pick 242, Brett Kiesel. Not a Pro Bowl level player, nothing like that, but man, he was the heartbeat of that defense for a long time, and he gave them a certain kind of attitude on their defensive line. Just a really solid player for almost a decade.
Oh yeah, we talked about this before. When Aaron Smith could stay healthy on the one end, and they had Casey Hampton in the middle and Brett Kiesel on the other end, it just allowed the 4 linebackers to do what they want. Normally, it's the 4-3 that allows the linebackers to run around and make plays, not the 3-4. A lot of times those linebackers still have to take on a lot of blocks. But, man, when those guys were look at the 08 Steelers defense was insane. It was insane. So I have zero issue with this. Now, wait a minute. J.J. Watt went to Wisconsin, so he was at Central Michigan first?
Yes, he went to Central Michigan.
I didn't know that.
First. Yep, before transferring over. Now, he played tight end at Central Michigan, and they had Antonio Brown at receiver.
I'd say I didn't know that. I'm not a draft guy. You know this. All right. San Francisco 49ers.
I'm just going to name the player that I'm staying out of the way. Navarro Bowman, 3rd-round pick. Go ahead.
Yeah. Man, my first year doing kind of like an off-season overview for NFL teams for NFL.com was the 2010 off-season. And I had so many teams that I kept wanting to slide Navarro Bowman as the guy they needed. And in that era, and I know you're like, well, dude, that wasn't that long ago, 2010. What do you mean that era? 2010 NFL was different. It was. And a linebacker like Navarro Bowman had way more value at that time than now, although I still think he could play just fine now. He and Patrick Willis, we just talked about the Steelers' defensive line. Holy cow. When the 49ers linebacker core was healthy with Ahmad Brooks and Navarro Bowman and Patrick Willis, and then having Aldon Smith as an edge rusher, who was the other guy that they had that Aldon Smith came in and out with? Paris Harrelson, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Not Hilton. Another terrible dad joke there. One of the best linebacking cores ever, man.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
Without a doubt.
Forget since 2000. So we
I think there was
a lot of Patrick Willis.
I think there were some times where certain seasons, I think you could make a case that Bowman was better than Patrick Willis. And we both love Patrick Willis. So heck of a value. Seattle. I went with Russell Wilson, but it was incredibly hard for me to leave Richard Sherman off this list, as he was a 5th-round pick, picked like 75 spots later. Where would you have gone here?
I would have gone Russell Wilson all day. This is, I mean, when you're getting a quarterback, the only downside to Russell Wilson, if I recall, I think he turned 24 as a rookie. That was literally the only, and that doesn't really matter as much. I think, Marcus, at quarterback, really what you're concerned about is that your quarterback is good out of the gate so that you can capitalize on that, so you have money to spend around. When you think of that, when people think right now of the draft and like it, should you draft Saquon Barkley, right? No, you should draft a quarterback. They always use Russell Wilson as the shining example because he was good out of the gate. You had him on the cheap. And I think Russell Wilson's going to the Hall of Fame. I have no problem with this.
All right, next one, Tampa Bay. Their history of drafting linebackers is pretty good between Quan Alexander, Barrett Ruud, Mason Foster,
Levante David.
And that's where I went. Levante David, pick 58 in the second round.
End of the second round.
Yeah, end of the second round. 10 years of elite linebacker play. It's hard to beat that.
So let's talk about that for just a second. Yeah, and I know the podcast. This is a long one. Look, we're doing we're giving you more bang for the buck, just like our draft picks here. So Lavonte David, when you talk about a guy taken at the end of the second round, in your opinion, pie in the sky, what are you hoping to get as a team? What is like, man, we nailed the 58th overall pick?
I think if you can get a guy that can contribute in year one and by year two be a solid starter, I think you are very happy with what you're doing in the second round.
That's a win. If we were to look at the end of the second round last year, I doubt we would find anyone of Lavonte David. Now I'm going off memory here, but I'm just saying you get a guy like Lavonte David at the end of the second round. That's the kind of draft pick that if it doesn't win you championships, it gets you in the playoffs because you're getting so much more value than what other teams are getting there.
I agree. And it just raises your floor every year. If you can get a guy like that and you're not having to spend a top 50 selection on and you're getting Pro Bowl level production. Yeah. And a guy that never misses games, that's a huge value.
Now I have to look at last year's draft and see if there was anyone at the end of the second round that I'm forgetting about. I bet you there is. Okay, let's see.
You're saying
Nick Bolton went 58th last year, and that was actually a good pick.
Yeah, and you're hoping that he can be a quality linebacker for the next 3 or 4 years, right?
But he's the best. No, Creed Humphrey, I would say, was the best pick. Ironically, same team. Kansas City had the best picks at the back half of the second round last year at 58 and 63rd. Doesn't mean either one of those guys could be Lavonte David, though, in quality, especially the longevity. Too. What year did David come out? Was that 13 or 12?
That was 2012.
Yeah. Golly. Okay. Tennessee Titans.
Oh, this one was tricky. Not a lot of names that jump out. Jarrell Casey was a 3rd-round pick in 2011. He's a really good player, 5 Pro Bowls. Kevin Byard is an all-pro safety. He was drafted in the 3rd round. But I went with a 7th-round pick in the 2006 draft, Cortland Finnegan, because Finnegan was a really good corner for a couple of years. I mean, everybody remembers him beating up your guy, Andre Johnson, right? Finnegan.
Okay. Wait a minute.
I think Finnegan's just such a good value at 215.
That was in 2000. I think that was 2009. It was our first year that we had Red Zone, and we took that. And he was a scrappy player. That's really the best way to describe him. He played the position really, really tough. Are there any Cortland Finnegans in the league right now? Is the league even conducive to a tough guy, defensive back, given
we have one.
Where the game's played?
We've got one right now, and he's with the Saints. It's Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, right?
Okay.
That's our guy.
I like how you said your guy. He beat up your guy. You're like trying to. Don't act like you don't love Andre Johnson.
I do. He's a fantastic player.
If I sent you an Andre Johnson jersey, you would put it up on that wall, and I could tell you I would. I'd tell you which jersey you can replace with it too. All right, Washington Commanders, sir. What do you have?
This one was tricky. It's our first running back of the list.
You're starting to sound like an old man when he gets out of a chair. Well, this really happens at 30, where you go.
You just make
every single one of these. You're like, Elliot, this is tricky.
Washington did not have a lot of great names to pick. So I went with Alfred Morris, a 6th-round pick who was a converted fullback. Alfred Morris' start to his career was incredible. And it was so much fun to watch with RG3. But talking about somebody who had almost 4,000 rushing yards the first 3 years of his career, you get that in the 6th round. It's hard to beat.
That's fair. I just looked up somebody because I remember him being a good value. I didn't have it memorized. 105th overall in the 2015 draft, Jamison Crowder. That was a good pick for them. Mm-hmm. They got a lot of value in the 4th round. Trying to think on the early 2000s with Washington, and it is just a barren wasteland.
It's not great.
Hold on. I have to look. 2 guys to see. Did you have any other people that you were thinking about here?
No,
not really.
I'm telling you, it's pretty bleak. If you look at their draft history.
The guy that I was kind of thinking about, do you remember John Jansen, offensive line, really good player? He went in 99 in the 2nd round. The other guy I thought about was Chris Cooley, Chris Cooley went in the third round of the 04 draft. I thought that was a pretty good one.
It's tough. I mean, you could make a case Kirk Cousins, but Kirk Cousins only was there for a few years, right?
They kept doing the franchise do-si-do with them.
Yep.
I have no problem with this. I think this is actually one of your slicker picks here, because isn't it incredible that a guy – what did Alfred Morris have his rookie year? Was it 1,600 yards?
1,600 yards as a rookie. Yep.
Now, I will say he was the beneficiary of teams were having a hard time adjusting in 2012 still. Well, it really started in 2011. The whole Tim Tebow thing, teams were having to play 11 on 11 because the quarterback was a threat. Well, RG3 took that to the next level in 2012. And so when you're having to play 11 on 11 versus like playing Joe Flacco, which is playing 11 on 10, I'm talking about in the running game, the quarterback hands the ball off, he's out of the play. With Washington, you didn't know. And so that helped Morris. But Morris was he could run inside with some power. He had a little bit of wiggle, as Bill Parcells like to say. I'm with this. I thought he actually played okay for Dallas.
Yeah, and I kind of forgot this until I went and looked at it. But so he had a pretty decent year for Dallas in 2017. He was basically out of the league in 2019. He came back in 2020 for the Giants when Saquon Barkley got hurt, and he played well. He averaged 4.3 yards per carry as a 32-year-old. Like, he's not going to light the world on fire, but he's a fine player.
I didn't even remember that. So another thing about Alfred Morris, by the way, this is our last one, it's Washington, so we could spend a little bit longer on it. But we just talked about this with Russell Wilson. He turned 24, Marcus, as a rookie.
Yeah.
Now, when you're a running back, that is a big deal. Typically now you want your running backs to be about 21 years old when they get into the league. So Alfred Morris, that might have been why he didn't last as long. But I also want to just say with him, it's not like 2012 was his only good year. I made it sound like it was all RG3. 2013, 1,275 yards, Marcus, 4.6 yards per carry. He had another 1,000-yard season. And as you already pointed out, Dallas, 4.8 yards a carry for the 2017 Cowboys. Never a big pass catcher, though.
No. But a good blocker, though. If you wanted him to stay in a block, you could do that.
Guy played 8 years in the league and caught 9 years in the league, caught 68 balls.
Yep.
Total. so there
that's
you go.
My list. What'd you think?
Honestly, man, it's better than I thought.
The expectations were so
low. In a good way. Like, I thought it was going to be good, but I had very few that I could really come at you on. There were a couple here and there that I thought you could have gone with a different guy, but I didn't think you messed up any of them. I was a little surprised with your Calais Campbell pick. I like it. It just surprised me because I understand why you avoided Fitzgerald. I'm surprised that you didn't go bold in there. I know how you like your whiteouts.
You can, though. I mean, that's one where I'm not going to fight you on.
And you mentioned Darnell Dockett on that one too, which I thought was interesting choice. Who was the linebacker they had that was so good? It's driving me nuts.
Carlos Dansby.
No, not Dansby. No, this guy got hurt and only played a few games. He was inside. Darryl Washington. That's who I was going to say. It just came to me. I don't remember where they got him in the draft.
He was a first round pick, I believe.
I thought he was going to be so good. I thought he was going to be so good. But that's just a little aside. But I like the Dockett pick. I like you didn't pick him, but I like the mention. And Calais Campbell is a great player.
Yeah, there you go.
What are you giggling about?
No, I just this is why day 3 of the draft is important. I know it's a marathon, and by the time we get to Saturday, everybody's tired. But if you could hit on a player on day 3, it doesn't even need to be a Pro Bowl level player, but just somebody who can give you quality snaps for 4 or 5 years. That's how you find championship level teams. Look at the Rams, right? Finding Cooper Kupp in the 3rd round. All of a sudden you get one of the best receivers in the league and you didn't have to spend a premium pick on him. That's how you win Super Bowls.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And that's why I thought the Levante David discussion was important, because at the end of the 2nd round, I always feel like that's right around where I don't want to say people are checking out, Marcus, but, kind of the people that aren't into the draft are like, okay, all the names that I really know are gone. You're always going to have 48 guys that are kind of considered 1st round picks. But obviously there's only 32 slots. I'm just cherry picking a number, but somewhere around there, right? And then by, I think what Levante David was, he pick 58? 58. By pick 58, all those guys are gone. You might have one guy because of some kind of medical or attitude thing, but pretty much all the big name dudes are gone. And that's where people check out. And that's where you can really do your work. And when you're at the end of the second round into the third round turn, I feel like that's where you can get really high quality players that can contribute right away. So it may not be, I know you're talking day 3. I'm just saying for me, I always look at the end of the second round when I watch the draft to kind of the mid of the third round and wonder how many of these guys are going to hit. So anyway.
That's why I love the draft, though, because if you could find those guys on day 2 and day 3 that become high quality starters, it's what takes a team from being okay to a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, and you find like a really good third round pick that Marcus underrates terribly, like a Michael Gallup, because he has his favorites. Yeah, exactly. No, I know what you mean. Hey, I give you the final word as always, my friend.
That was my final word. I spent all my good stuff. Cool. There we go.
Yeah. All right. Hey, great job on this. He is at Marcus_Mosher. Hope you enjoyed it. He covers the Cowboys for Locked On Cowboys. Be covering the draft pretty heavy. The Raiders for USA Today as well. I am at Harrison NFL. We thank you so much. And hey, you can leave us a review. It'd be really great. I love it when you guys leave reviews. It's so nice. Really. We'll send you cookies. I don't know if we'll send you cookies, but we'll think of that. Thanks to everyone to Briggs, and we'll take care. We'll take care. You'll take care. All right. I'm off the rails at this point. See you.